Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of our hurricane coverage of Hurricane Florence. And I am Jim Williams here with HurricaneCity.com. We're going to be with you for 2 hours tonight. Bill Phillips was supposed to be with me here. He's having connectivity issues, so he'll be joining us in a minute. Here is the current position of Hurricane Florence, right off the southeastern coast of the United States, and it is moving in the general direction of the North Carolina, South Carolina border, and it's going to be coming in starting tomorrow, and then all through the day on Friday is when the bulk of this is going to come in, and then on Saturday rather, it'll begin to move into South Carolina and move further inland, and then on Sunday it'll start to turn north and start heading into the Appalachian region, going into Monday, Tuesday of next week. So let me just make sure I have everything streaming here properly. Just 1 minute. And make sure my audio is being, we're capturing everything fine. We are on both Facebook and Ustream tonight. So let me go back to camera here. Let me stop this share. Again, I'm Jim Williams. Thank you for watching tonight. We were live last night. I'm going to show you a whole bunch of things tonight. I have the HurTrack program going tonight, just like last night. But I have a lot of notes here because I know I told you guys last night I was going to be covering certain things that I didn't get to because, like, for example, the isotherm maps of the temperatures of the 80-degree or higher temperatures below the surface of the ocean, which can help to strengthen it or weaken it as it approaches the coast. Notes. And I'm not going to miss any of these things. Now, Bill's going to be calling in any minute. He's going to have some things to say, but we may go for an hour and a half tonight on Hurricane Florence. And so let me just mention real quickly, I was going to talk to Bill about this when he called in, but the nightly news, I don't know if any of you watch the nightly news out there, but I watch the ABC nightly news pretty much on a nightly basis. And the first, and then they go into their other news. And tonight's news was, the first 15 minutes was all about, so that tells you it's a big deal. And they have David Muir, which I like to call David Meower for my cats, of course. But David Meower was in Wilmington on the beach, in Atlantic Beach, I believe. And so he's going to be, this is Bill here texting me. Let's see. He had connectivity to his computer. What else is new? So we'll see if he comes in here in a minute. Anyway, the nightly news went for 15 minutes all on Florence. And then I switched over to C, and they were also doing about 15 minutes on Hurricane Florence. So tomorrow night's broadcast, which is the eve of the landfall, now there is a little bit, there's some weakening going on here today, and I'm going to show you a close-up satellite. But I mentioned it I think I mentioned it on the show last night. I'm not sure about these hurricanes when they come up in the mid-Atlantic. So the dry air works its way underneath and into the hurricane from the south, and it has that bat look. And this is starting to have the bat look, and which is surprising because all the intensity models were saying this was going to be possibly up near Category 5 today, and now it's down to Category 3. So we're going to examine why it's not as strong as what they thought it would be. They also talked today about the hurricane hunters, and I'm going to show you a little clip of the hurricane hunters flying in there right now. They're flying in from the south, so they're finding that dry slot, and they're coming in from the south and coming in the safest place they can get into that eye of Hurricane Florence, where it's the weakest on the southwest quadrant of the hurricane. Again, we're going to show you the HurTrack models tonight. There's an interesting weather tap. I'm going to show radars and satellite and all this stuff. Anyway, they have a radar model that goes out into the future. I'm going to show you that tonight. That's kind of interesting. To all the local weather service offices up and down the coast, which is kind of cool. I think they're linking to Morehead City, Wilmington, Charleston offices, so you can get all the localized information if you live in those areas to find out what you're supposed to do. And another thing I wanted to talk about, gets all kinds of text messages here coming in. Another thing I wanted to talk about is my sister called me this. She didn't call me. She texted me this morning. Asked me this morning on a text message. I have friends that are in Hampstead, North Carolina, which is like inland, like I guess where US 1 would be, for most areas on the East Coast, but outside the surge zone. They're like out. You got the NHC surge maps, which I'm going to show you in a minute, that have all the water coming in, but stopping short of that area where they live in. And I said to my sister, listen, I'm not going to get in the game of telling people you're safe, you're not safe, you need to say, you need to go. I'm not going to get in that game. It's kind of a gotcha game because at the end they can say, well, you said I shouldn't leave and now we were flooded. Or at the end of the day, they can say, you told me to leave and nothing happened at my house. So I'm not getting involved in that game anymore. If people want to privately email me and say, what do you think? Should we stay or should we go? Pay attention to your local emergency management. I can't emphasize this enough. Your local television stations will have all the information about what you should or shouldn't be doing, whether you should. But if you don't leave by tomorrow morning, you're stuck. Like if you're in the Wilmington, Myrtle Beach area, tomorrow morning is your last chance. If you don't get out by between now and then, you're done. Like you got to stay put. You just got to fortify your home and, be ready to fight the hurricane. You're just going to have to deal with the worst of what it's going to have to offer. So with all this said, anything else I'm forgetting in my notes? Well, let me quickly mention another thing, kind of a peeve I have tonight, and that is the National Hurricane Center does an excellent job on their discussions, right? And I love to read the discussions, but they've been posting the Florida State Super Ensemble model in their discussion. They're not posting it, but they've been mentioning it in their discussions. And it kind of pisses me off because they get that information. Florida State University, it's the Florida State Super Ensemble model. Florida State University developed that model from a professor that worked at the university and developed that model. That's our taxpayer dollars. That's a public university. They made that model. They in turn sold it to a private firm, which then lets the National Hurricane Center have access to that data, but they're not letting the regular people like me have access to that data, so it's kind of pissing me off. All right, I think Bill is with us. We're going to join him in the audio. And I should be joining him right now.
There
Bill,
you go.
Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Okay, I guess you had to reboot your computer or something. What happened?
I had to reboot the modem. Story for another day, but you know the connectivity problems I have in here.
Okay, so let me stop the. Oh, let me go full screen on this because. Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that when I'm talking, I'm full screen, and when you're talking, you're full screen, but I'm still seeing you, so we got to fix this. Let me go to gallery view.
Remember to check that setting that says follow face in, I think it's in settings.
Well, look, just go with what we got because you were supposed to join me like 10 minutes ago. I'm not going to go through all this aggravation right now. So I have the 3 pane up. I got the 3 pane. Okay, so we'll show people the images. Let me see if I go full screen. Okay, I'm talking and I'm not seeing myself, but let me see something.
We did test this about 3 hours ago.
Yeah, but you got to test it. You know, I would have tested it when you first called in, and I would have had it set up that way. But now that you didn't call in, so I just kind of winging it here. Spotlight video. Okay. Anyway, give me your thoughts while I'm trying to figure this out. So let me ask you this. The two things, because you're great at analogies, right? So I want to hear your opinion. I want a good analogy for what's happening with Hurricane Florence right now with the weakening, but still a powerful hurricane heading towards land. And I want to know your opinion of a good analogy for the threat that the people are facing in the Carolinas right now.
The weakening is, I'm not going to give an analogy, but I'll explain it because I have to think about that one. I'm good at analogies, but not to that degree. That was too good. The weakening is due to more of, I think it's an eye wall replacement cycle and the wind field expanding as it approaches land, which we see all the time. And it's just a matter of the internal dynamics of the storm itself changing as that occurs. Because we've seen this time and time again.
Well, I wanted a kind of an analogy from you tonight.
Yeah, you should have gave me that a couple of hours ago. I'd have thought about it.
I have a good one. I think it's kind of like somebody letting out a wild pack of dogs outside of their fenced-in area, and they're coming for your house, and you're standing out front, and you know that those dogs are coming, but there's somebody shooting at them, and boy, they're running around with 3 legs instead of 4 legs, but you know they're still coming. That's kind of of analogy of what's going on with Florence right now. It's weakening, but you know it's a threat, like it could kill you. Like that, I think that's kind of a decent analogy. A little bit crazy.
No. Here's another one, and you just gave it to me. She is, as she weakens, she's a wounded. She's had her heyday. She had her fun over the last couple of days. You know, getting up to 140, 150. Now she's a wounded animal as she approaches land. And what do we say all the time? Don't corner a wounded animal. Land's going to corner her and weaken it down, but she's going to go down fighting like a son of a bitch.
Right.
And you don't want to be. I was actually no, Donnie. Nope. I can't believe what he just asked. Never mind.
What does Donnie have to do with this?
Nothing. He just has to be on the show. We're not going there.
No. We have enough issues going on right now. Go ahead. All right. You know what? Let's just forget this. Let's just get to the Herd Track program.
What I was getting at was she's a wounded animal. She's a caged animal, and the land and a little bit of shear maybe, and the upwelling. We can go to that isotherm map if you've got it up. Is all 3 of those factors are going to go to weaken her, but it doesn't matter. The sea, the ocean is angry. The seas are 30 to 40 feet. Even though this thing weakens, the surge is there. You're going to have a major hurricane surge, even if the winds do drop to 110 or 100. It doesn't matter now. The damage is done. The water's coming.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Like the energy that these things carry, not just when they're coming from here's the thing. Florence is coming from open ocean. It's had all this time to build that storm surge. It's this large dome of water that's moving towards land, and it's had all this real estate to build up that dome. Just like when they're in the middle of the Gulf, they have a huge dome they can build up before they move inland. Whereas if they're in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, there's kind of some land interaction. The storm surge isn't as big. But when you get them out in the middle of the Gulf, all that water builds up. That's what's happening here. There's no Bahama Islands to get in the way. There's no land masses. It's got all this energy that's being dragged toward the Carolina coastline. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, even if this weakens down to Category 2 or something, all that energy is coming in there. It's going to be really bad.
And like I said, the wind field expands as it approaches land, and also as it collapses, as it weakens, if that is indeed what it's doing. Everything spreads out, and that's exactly what's going on. Also, you have the storm going up against a high pressure to the north, low pressure to the south. What do you have? Pressure gradient and winds.
Right.
So, I mean, like I said, it doesn't matter if it goes down to a Category 2. It doesn't matter. The damage, it's coming. There's nothing we can do to stop it. The question is, how long does this torture last? And that's the question we can't answer tonight. We don't know.
Yeah, that's right. That's the $1,000,000 question in all this is how long is this going to last? You know, and I want to show a couple of models. I really didn't want to lean on tropical tidbits tonight, but the problem with the HERTRAC models is they don't show the actual animation of the model. It just shows a line. And a lot of times when you're showing a model that has a line attached to it, it kind of doesn't really magnify the size of the storm, how long the wind field is going to be sitting over that landmass. So I want to show you, here's the thing, the GFS and the Euro have been going back and forth on this thing. The GFS has been the best performer on this system since day one. By far, the GFS is the best performer. And I have people saying, well, yeah, but the Euro is always right, which is true. But,
including me. I've said that.
Right. But, for example, like the media, I'm noticing they're like strictly leaning on the European model. They're showing all the European ensembles and everything. But the European model, and I posted it this morning on Twitter. By the way, it's at Hurricane City. If you're listening, please follow me on Twitter, at Hurricane City. But they were talking, I mean, I posted an image of the Euro from like 3 days ago, and it had this thing going through North Carolina and up into Virginia. That was the European model 3 days ago. Not your area, Bill, but further west of you.
It would have been much worse for me had that happened.
Yeah, it would have been worse, not much worse, because it still would have went well to it still would have came into Wilmington. But my point is, it was going to go up into Virginia, to your west. Now they don't have that happening. Well, they do have it happening later on, but they don't, as it makes landfall, it has it dipping off to the south, kind of paralleling the coast, and then making the turn to the west and then going north. The GFS has been consistently bringing this in just north of Wilmington, and then kind of getting hung up and then doing some crazy things. The GFS had it looping off the coast. It had it going out to sea. It's had it doing all kinds of things. But it's overall, the track has been better than the Euro. And the GFS right now is taking it onshore in Wilmington and then south into Myrtle Beach. So that makes all the difference in the world for Myrtle Beach, and especially areas in like Georgetown and Charleston down there.
That's the difference between a Category 3 and maybe a Category 1.
Yeah, exactly. Like if it did what the GFS was kind of thinking, that it would bounce off the coast and then come into South Carolina, that would be really bad. But if it comes inland and just drops south, then it's going to be Category 1 and a lot of rain. And I'm not trying to diminish what a Category 1 is, because like you just said earlier, this is going to be a water event regardless of what category it is. The water's just going to be, the water's just going to be piling up, even in South Carolina. Now, I have a guy that's been private messaging me on Facebook and saying that he's in Pawleys Island area, in the Georgetown area, and that they're worried about storm surge. They're calling for 6 to 8 feet. And I'm like, well, the thing is, if this comes into Wilmington and then south and it weakens to a Cat 1, your winds are going to be primarily offshore winds out of the north and northwest, even if it rides along the coast. But if it goes well inland, the winds will shift out of the south, and then it'll be much weaker at that point, so the surge wouldn't be as high. The only way I could see it really, really bad for Charleston or Georgetown would be if it went back out over the water and then came in. Then it would be really bad. But if it comes in from the north over land, the surge will be diminished somewhat for areas down towards Charleston and even for Georgetown maybe.
By the way, did you see the 8 p.m.?
Why, is there anything I should be looking for?
Up to 955 millibars, down to 115. That's a significant change in pressure in the last 3 hours.
All right, let's do this. Let me get her track.
It's like
And
5
I'm
or
going to
6
share.
millibar.
Now, you are seeing the her track program?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, good. All right, now let's go ahead and look at the public advisory. And
Now I'm trying to
yeah,
figure
this is
out
the
why
8
the wheels.
p.m. from the national. What was that?
Now I'm trying to figure out why the wheels might be coming off.
Yeah.
I explained some of it, but this doesn't make any sense at the
Well,
moment.
when I'm done reading this, I'm gonna go look at the heat maps and the water vapor loop, because I want to see if there's dry air and wind shear maybe getting into the system right now. Because they did mention southwesterly wind shear, perhaps up to 20 knots, but that was as it was making landfall, not now. So, all right, here's the update from the National Hurricane Center, 8 p.m., 335 miles southeast of Wilmington, North Carolina, 370 miles east-southeast of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Maximum sustained winds are 115 miles per hour, moving northwest at 16, so that hasn't changed. Still moving the same speed. Pressure 956 millibars, 28.23 inches. I'll show the watch and warning areas here in a minute. I don't want to read all that.
That's a 13 millibar rise since this morning.
13 millibars, wow. Okay, here's some surge potential footage here. Cape Fear to Cape Lookout, North Carolina, including the Neuse and Pamlico and Pungo and Bay Rivers, 9 to 13 feet. North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to Cape Fear, North Carolina, 6 to 9 feet. Cape Lookout, North Carolina to Ocracoke Inlet, 6 to 9 feet. South Santee River, South Carolina to North Myrtle Beach, 4 to 6 feet. That's the guy that was emailing me or texting me back and forth. 4 to 6 foot for his area. Ocracoke Inlet, North Carolina to Salvo, North Carolina, 4 to 6. Salvo, North Carolina to North Carolina, Virginia border, 2 to 4 feet. Which, now you're in Virginia Beach, Bill. Tell people how far north you are of North Carolina.
12 miles from the border.
12 miles from the border. So you might get maybe 2 feet, perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps.
All right, let's go ahead and map this. And quickly, I'm not going to show Isaac tonight. I touched on Isaac last night. It's a tropical storm. It is heading toward the Leeward Islands. It will be hitting maybe just north of Dominica, the same island that was hit by Hurricane Maria last year, devastated by Maria. And it will be moving into probably just maybe south of Martinique as a weak tropical storm. So I'm not really going to talk that much about this, about Isaac tonight. But I wanted to pick your brain a little bit, Bill, before we got to all this. But I wanted to know what you thought about the popcorn that's going on out in the Atlantic right now. It's popping everywhere.
It's crazy. I mean, you got a disturbance in the Western Gulf near Texas. You've got Isaac. You've got another subtropical system in the north. Another wannabe subtropical system in the North Atlantic. I mean, it's insane the amount of. I mean, it's lit up like a Christmas tree in the Atlantic. But we are only, what is today, the 12th?
Yes.
The hurricane season's statistically September the 10th. So there you go. There's your map.
Okay, so to look at this map, we got 5 systems out there, and this one here, it's kind of pissing me off. And I don't know about you, but when we have a big system like Florence out there and everybody's on edge, and then we have all this other crap, and I don't mean to sound like a baby about this, and I wish we could spread this out over the course of the season. Like, give us one a month, or give us a couple a month, or maybe one
Mother
every other
Nature
week or
don't give a
something.
Mother Nature don't give a shit about how we
Yeah,
feel.
I know that. I know. But you know, then again, sometimes I think Mother Nature just likes to mess with us sometimes. Like, okay, let's not just give them one. Let's throw 5 out there at one time. And then to make matters, to even make it more strange, is the fact that the MJO is kind of in a suppressing phase in the Atlantic Basin right now. So if the MJO was positive or in a more moist rising air atmosphere in the Atlantic Basin, then you could explain this. But there is no explanation for this other than the fact that it's the height of the hurricane season, and this is the kind of thing that can happen. And this is why I poo-poo the MJO, because while it
What do
can
you call the
enhance,
MJO?
what's that?
What do you call the MJO? Come on.
Mostly junk observations. Because you know what? There are people that specialize, like this Michael Ventures guy. He specializes in the MJO. And then there are times where you've seen it, the tropics are alive and there's no MJO. And then there are times where the tropics are dead and there's an active MJO. Like, to me, I'm not saying the MJO is complete garbage. I mean, there are cases where if there was a positive MJO right now in the Atlantic Basin, possibly Florence would be strengthening right now instead of weakening. I mean, that's possible, right?
I think an MJO is just it's like think of the atmosphere and the overall planet as a pot of stew. It's just an ingredient if it's there. It plays a role if the disturbance is already it can play a role if the disturbance is already on the map, already there.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly my point. Like, but it's negative. The only place there's an MJO right now, last time I checked, is like this area right in here. That's your positive MJO right now. But all of this is suppressing out in here. It's just not supposed to be conducive in this area here, and yet we're still popping storms and whatever. We're still having these storms. But anyway, let's quickly, while I have this map up, go over everything real quickly on what I think is going to happen here. First of all, again, we have our invest out here. There's a chance.
Rainmaker, move on.
Yeah, it doesn't look that organized to me, and I think there's a chance this could become maybe a depression or something. I'm hoping it doesn't become a storm because my predictions are based on 11 to 13. I could deal with maybe 14, 15 tops, but if we go much over 15, then people could say, well, your predictions for what areas are going to be impacted weren't legitimate because we had so many more storms than what you were predicting. I was predicting 11 to 13. So,
yeah, but we weren't counting so many garbage storms in the Atlantic.
Yeah, and speaking of garbage, we got Joyce out here, and that's supposed to just wash out, like get caught up in a trough out here, and it's not going to really become a hurricane or anything, or at least that's not the forecast. So we got Joyce, and this would become the next named storm, which is what is the next named storm out here?
Wait a minute. I'm looking at that. I'm like, where the hell did Joyce come from?
Yeah, Kirk. Kirk is the next named storm. So Kirk, Kirk would be the next system, which is heading towards Texas if that were to develop. And all indications are it's going to be weak, though. But don't let that fool you either, because they've already had some flooding problems in the upper Texas coast recently. they're having a lot of rainfall, and this is going to exacerbate the situation. So even though it may not be a hurricane or even a tropical storm, it's still going to potentially dump a lot of rain in Texas. So we're going to keep an eye
Yeah.
on that. And then the next question is, Bill, maybe you can answer this. What do I do? And at Hurricane City, we feature one city at a time, and I'm featuring Wilmington, North Carolina, which incidentally happens to be my number one area for the United States this year to be impacted by a named storm, and Myrtle Beach is right behind it. But um, if I'm featuring Wilmington, I'm obviously not going to get rid of that. But Isaac is going to be hitting the northern Leeward Islands right before Florence hits the United States. And then this system near Texas will be hitting Texas probably around the same time that Isaac is pulling away from the island. So,
What you do is you feed with. Can you just create a text link with the
no, you're missing. No, I'm not finished. What I was going to say is at the bottom of the site at Hurricane City, you see all the advisory information, the thumbnails down there for Florence and for Isaac. There's only room for two storms down there. So what do I do? Boot Isaac in favor of whatever becomes hitting Texas, or because Isaac might be a player down the road? There, some of the models are indicating it could regenerate and head into the Gulf of Mexico.
I personally, you're looking at nothing more than a rain pump out of this system. I don't want to poo-poo that. We stick with the two storms that may be of consequence down the road, that are Isaac, and obviously my attention is not leaving Florence at all.
And then, of course, we have this system out here, Hurricane Florence, or Hurricane Helene, rather.
This
And
storm, except if you're in the Cape Verde.
yeah, now Helene, interestingly enough, it never became a major hurricane. It came close to a major, and then I think it got up to 105, and then now it's backing down in intensity. So Helene is not going to become a major hurricane. So that leaves Florence as our only major in the Atlantic Basin. And for the MJO fans out there, they could maybe argue that, well, maybe more than one of these could have been major had we had a positive, an enhanced MJO, or Florence would have been much more powerful, or, whatever, a combination of things. But we've only had the one major now, and that's Florence. So will that be the only major this year? Who knows? So let me go ahead and screen share the HurTrack, and let's go ahead and animate this. And here we go. The wind field has expanded quite a bit on this. Here we go. It's heading into just south of the city of Wilmington. Now, interestingly, Bill, the last night's information was about 30 miles north of Wilmington, and tonight's show were about 14 miles south of Wilmington. So that was quite a sizable shift overnight and this morning on the track forecast from the National Hurricane Center. Again, this is based on the National Hurricane Center 5 p.m. advisory, not the 8. And this is taking it in 14 miles to the south of Wilmington, riding along the coast, hitting Myrtle Beach, and then dissipating inland. Doesn't show it coming back out over the water like the European showed on the last run. It doesn't show it on this current run. But let me stop it here.
How long are we looking at hurricane force winds in Wilmington itself?
Okay, here we go. Inside that red circle, that skinny red circle, are winds sustained at hurricane force. Okay, that could be anywhere from 75 miles an hour. I know it technically is 74. 74 up to, 120 miles an hour. Could be inside that red circle. Not the bright red circle, but the skinny red circle. That starts at 1 a.m. on Friday morning at 1 o'clock in the morning, just after midnight. So tomorrow is your day. If you're going to do any last-ditch, last-second effort of anything on your property or anything, tomorrow up until around noontime, and then the tropical storm force winds are going to be piling up in there. But this is 1 a.m. in the morning. Now we go forward and we go into 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Okay, now we're starting to have the sun is rising. Of course, there's not going to be any sun rising in Wilmington, or at least it's not going to be bright. It's going to be very dark still as this is coming in. The sky is going to turn black, construction paper gray. There's going to be winds coming out of the northeast and east-northeast into Wilmington, north-northeast into Wilmington. At this point, the winds are 120 miles an hour. And then the donut comes on. This is the core of the highest winds right around the eye wall. These are the winds that are, 120 mile an hour gust. I'm sorry?
Contained 115, maybe 120.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if this is going to be in a weakening state, and we've talked about this a million times, where these hurricanes come in, and if they're in a weakening mode, the winds don't mix as much down at the surface. So even though this is showing 120 mile per hour winds, most people in Wilmington will probably get Category 2 conditions out of this if this forecast pans out.
100.
Yeah, Category 2, solid Cat 2. Nothing to sneeze at. Believe me, I went through Hurricane Irma last year with Category 1 winds on the East Coast, and it kicked our ass over here. Power was out everywhere, trees down, roof shingles missing. Nothing to sneeze at with this kind of intensity.
You got your ass kicked for about 6 hours.
Yeah, it was, and this is going to be a lot longer than that for these people in Wilmington. And that's the thing. 100 mile an hour winds for 12 hours versus 120 mile an hour winds for 3 hours or 4 hours, I think is almost the same, because it's the prolonged duration of those high winds that are going to peel the shingles back on your roof, and then the next gust that comes by is going to blow them off. So this is going to be a prolonged event. There's going to be a lot of things breaking and destroyed
it's like
on
the
Friday.
Big bad wolf, but he's not going to stop blowing till she's not going to stop blowing until she gets out of there.
That's right. So here we are, 4 o'clock on Friday. Still a major hurricane right over Wilmington, right over Cape Fear. Atlantic Beach, all these areas are going to be just hammered. The out islands are going to be underwater. It's going to be terrible. From Topsail Beach, areas north of Topsail Beach, all the way down to Wilmington, just south of Wilmington, near Myrtle Beach. Then they're going to start getting in on the action as we get into the evening hours. The bad thing about Myrtle Beach is they might get the worst conditions when it starts getting dark on Friday night. That's when the worst is going to come into Myrtle Beach, and you can't see anything in the dark. So at this point, the winds are 115 miles an hour still. It's still a major hurricane moving into Myrtle Beach in the middle of the night on Friday after dark. Here we are, 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. Okay, here we are on Saturday. We're getting now we're getting into the sunrise. 7 a.m. in the morning. It's directly over Myrtle Beach, 115 mile per hour winds, Bill. Still a major hurricane, like for 24 hours. This is going to be amazing.
I'm beginning to doubt that, but that's not our call.
Yeah, I know. That's the official forecast as of 5 p.m. It could change.
But I say that because look at it doesn't matter. Let's go back to the water. The storm surge is still going to be major, even if it comes at for example, say it comes in at 100 miles an hour. You're still going to have a Category 3 storm surge, maybe even Category 4 in spots because of all the water that's been generated. It's too late. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yep, that wall of water is coming with it, whether it's major or not, or no matter how much it's sitting over water. Look at the fetch. Look at all those arrows. They're all coming out of the east-southeast. Hurricane force winds just belting the coastline. Wilmington, Myrtle Beach, Georgetown. If this track pans out, now it weakens to a tropical storm at 6 p.m. on the 15th, which is Saturday. It's Saturday night. It finally weakens down to a tropical storm just west of Georgetown by about 24 miles. And it would be 56 miles north of Charleston at this point. And then it starts moving inland away from the coast and pulls away from Charleston, and it's still going to dump a ton of rain down in Charleston more than likely. However, We know about that dry slot on the south. We've seen it numerous times. This one's already showing signs of that. So if it comes in and that dry slot is there, it may not be as much rain for Charleston as what they're projecting. I'll show you the rain schematic. In fact, I want to show you that in a minute. So here it goes inland and becomes a tropical depression and then moves north and probably can dump more rain in the inland areas. But look at that, straddling the coast and then finally moving inland. All right, let's show the rain forecast.
Yeah, the flood story with this is going to be epic. And I don't use that word lightly.
Okay, here we go. Why do they have... I don't know why they have Wilmington area as unmarked for rainfall, but the surrounding areas, we're talking 21 inches of rain, possibly 21, 25 inches of rain in this area right around where the landfall takes place. Down in the Charleston area, we're talking potentially up to 12 inches. Let me zoom this map in a little bit.
I was going to say, or we could show the map from Weather Prediction Center. That's, I think, a little bit better color coded than this.
All right, here we are zoomed in on this, and again, you see the dark green areas. We're talking, if you use the color code down here, we're talking some of these, 24, 25 inches of rain in and around where this makes landfall. This is on top of the storm surge that's going to be moving, and I'll show you the surge map in a minute. So all these areas in southeastern North Carolina and northeastern South Carolina, up to 25 inches of rain. Then you get down into the Charleston area. We're still talking, anywhere between 4 and 10 inches of rain around Charleston. So right now, it looks like northern South Carolina and southeastern North Carolina are the bullseyes for the heaviest rainfall. Now let me show you quickly the wind swath on this. And again, this is based on the 5 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center. Now the reason the red doesn't come up to the coast is these are the winds right now that they're showing out there, although they currently have it at 115. So this was based on 127 to 154. So you know what, I'm not even going to show this map because it's not reflective of what it even currently is right now. So I'm going to bail on this map because they did weaken the intensity of this at 8 p.m. So let's get rid of that. Let's go ahead and show... I'm not going to show impact reports because the intensity is changing as we speak. Let me quickly show you the models on this map.
Now, it has yet to hit the Gulf Stream. I don't want to say that there's not a window for one more intensification to bring us back to 120, 125, maybe 130. I'm not ruling it off because of the Gulf Stream. I can't.
Right. All right, here's the models on all these systems. You like this map? This gives you kind of an idea for everything that's out there right now in one shot.
Wait a minute, this is everything, okay.
Yeah, this is everything. So you can see our Texas system pretty much middle Texas coast. Our Isaac rather, is going, let me use the telestrator here. Isaac is going to be moving into the Caribbean and it's going to be under wind shear, by the way, until it gets into this area over in here. And then there could be a little more of a favorable environment in the Western Caribbean Sea.
Which is typical for the Eastern Caribbean. Usually that's why they call that area typically the graveyard when it passes the islands.
Right. And indications are something could develop here. In fact, the GFS wants to take something in this kind of a manner. The Euro doesn't really show much with it at all, so we're going to have to see about that. Just mouse over some of these. That's the AVNI, the AVN interpolated model. The GFS model is the yellow, taking it up into western Cuba. The UK Met takes it toward the Yucatan, and the official takes it due west. So we'll just have to see about that. These other two out here, we're not going to worry about them. They could head toward the Azores out here. In fact, the GFS takes Joyce towards the Canary, the Canary Islands up here, the Azores. I'm sorry, the Azores.
Azores.
And it's very weak, 18 knots. I mean, there's not going to be much left of it by the time it
Forgive
gets
me
over
for
there.
asking this. When the hell did Joyce form? Was that earlier today?
Earlier today, it was a subtropical storm that developed off of like a trough out there. It was like a cutoff low that just was a subtropical storm that developed, and that happens in the Northeast Atlantic. It seems like it happens almost every year now, doesn't it?
I mean, I think that's like the third or fourth one that's done that this year. Isn't that like that? Because we're getting names off the list more than we ever had off of systems like that.
Yeah, it drives me bananas. Like I said, it just pads the numbers, and 20, 30 years ago they would have never saw those out there. Well, maybe 30
No.
years ago, but not 40 or 50. All right, here are the models on Florence. The Canadian model wants to take it just north of Wilmington and then right into northern South Carolina. The AEMI takes it right into Wilmington and a little further south of that. The TCOA, now these models, the TCOA that I'm mousing over right now, the black model, let me zoom in even more on this. The TCON models, the TCOA, the TCON, the TVCE, those models have been performing pretty well on Hurricane Florence all along, and they take it right into Wilmington, inland, and on eastern South Carolina, and then off to the west. The UK Met is the Aqua model, and that takes it just south, like the official forecast track almost. It parallels the official forecast track, the UK Met. The red model is the official. The red line is the official forecast. This is the NAM. Now, that's another thing I want to show you is this NAM model, because the NAM has a pretty good, decent handle. It's the North American mesoscale model, and what it does is it takes, it focuses on the United States, the troughs, the ridges, the upper level environment, and the NAM takes this into Wilmington and then dips it off to the south, keeps it offshore, and then weakens it significantly as it heads towards South Carolina. And then this one out here is the NVGI, which is the Navy no gaps interpolated model, the NavGem. It's just a terrible model. I don't really pay much attention to this. It has it curving to the south way offshore and heading in south of Charleston. I wouldn't really put much stock in that model. It's just not a very good model at all.
I'm sorry, that model sucks.
Yeah, it does. It's terrible. I don't even know why they use it. I hate for that, the people in the Navy. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of pride there with that model, but I mean, it's just, it's bad. It's a bad model.
I've told many Navy people that their model sucks.
Yeah, it's a terrible model, and it's always when the models are kind of trending north, it's way north, and when the models are trending south, it's way south. It's like it's always like crazy. I mean, it's always going much further away than what the average error is. It's just way out there, so I don't really pay much attention to that.
Okay, Jim, take a deep breath before we get off model talk. I want to make sure that you have a chance to go on your little rant. What's your issue with the FSSE, Florida State Super Ensemble? I know what it is, but the audience doesn't.
Okay, so let me remind me of that in just a second. Let me I'm trying to pull up these heat maps, and I don't want to forget to do that, and that's why I'm doing that right now, so I don't forget it. Okay, while that's loading. All right, so here's my opinion on that. I think I might have already gone off on this before you came on the show. I talked about it earlier, but the Florida State Super Ensemble model, they have access. The National Hurricane Center has access to that model. The general public can't have access to that model. Now, it is a public university that created the model. A professor there and the students, I guess, collaborated and created the Florida State Super Ensemble model, which are, under all accounts, is the best of all the models, right? The National Hurricane Center, well, it's not the Hurricane Center's fault because they don't own the access to that, but the university sold it to a private weather firm, and the private weather firm shares that with the National Hurricane Center. So the Hurricane Center can have access to that data and mention it in their discussions and their outlooks and everything, and the rest of us can't have access to it. So I can't even grade that model based on the performance versus the GFS and the Euro and all these other models, the TVCE and all these other models, because I don't have access to the Florida State Super Ensemble. It's really aggravating. And the HCCA as well, the consensus
Now,
model,
the HCCA or the corrected model consensus.
the corrected consensus model, I don't have access to that either. So the Hurricane Center, they like to throw those models around because nobody has access to them, and you know.
Well, no, I think it feeds back into their. It goes back to the whole amateur versus professional thing. They like to throw their weight around and say they have access to things and you don't. We know more than you do. It really gets annoying. And I think it feeds back into their wanting to be off on their own, and I honestly believe.
Okay, let me use one of your analogies. It's their ace in the deck. Is that what it is?
It's their ace in the hole. There you go.
It's their ace in the hole that they can pull out of their back pocket when everybody on the internet is squabbling about all the GFS and the Euro and this model and that model.
This is the best performing model. I'm sorry, you can't see it.
Yeah, it's really annoying. I wish they would fix it, make it public. We're paying for it. That's our tax dollars. We have a right to that model. But anyway, let's get to the heat map because we're running out of time.
Here's the isotherm map.
Yeah, this is the 78-degree isotherm map. Now, this allows you temperatures generally around 79 degrees or higher are enough to support the intensity of a hurricane. These are the temperatures below the surface of the ocean, and the yellow areas are. Let me screw the scale. Those are 100 meters down, which is like what was it? 170 feet or something below the surface of the ocean.
Right.
I didn't do the calculations in my head on this, but it's about 150. Whatever. The point is that the yellow areas, there's enough warm water below the surface to bring up to the surface to enhance the hurricane or fuel the hurricane. That's the same with the green areas where it's at right now. Those, it's right around a little over 100 feet of temperatures that are warm enough to support a hurricane. So even if it moves slowly and it churns up all the water from underneath, those are warm enough waters to support a hurricane. Now, where it's problematic is notice the blue area right along the coast, and that would be probably a 50-mile stretch, I would say, right along the coast here.
It's got to traverse that.
This area right up in here is very shallow waters with no heat content whatsoever. So it'll have a little fuel when it gets to the Gulf Stream, but when it gets to that shelf out there, there's no water below the surface that can support it. So once it starts churning up that water right along the immediate coast, it's going to immediately start to weaken it. Now let's take a look at the.
Now, in fairness, it's not there yet. That does not explain what's going on.
That's why I'm going to look at a water vapor loop real quickly.
Maybe there's some wind shear. Maybe one of the outflow channels has been choked off. Let's take a look.
Okay, let's take a look at the water vapor. Now, this is Tropical Tidbits. Let me share this. Okay, this is the water vapor loop of Hurricane Florence. And what I think is happening, and you can clearly see it here. Let me illustrate this.
Now there's a little jump in that frame for some reason.
Okay. Notice this slot right here, just south of the system, and it's moving. There's dry air being ingested into that.
Continental dry air. Yep.
Yeah, you see that little dry air channel to the south, and it's working its way into that southern eye wall, and it's weakening it. And you'd like to think, okay, well, maybe that'll mix out, but as the frames go by, it's eroding that southern eye wall more and more to the point where
inner core disruption.
Yeah, I mean, you see it bubbling. The convection continues to bubble up on the southern eye wall, but as it continues to move, it continues to erode on the southwest corner of the eye wall. So I think that dry air is really having an impact on this system. And question is that going to continue right up until landfall? That's a big unknown, but right now that's the reason right there.
Mm-hmm. It's fighting. It's been vigorous. It's fighting. I mean, it got sheared to death. That's a vigorous vortex underneath that. It'll fight.
All right, let's look at the long wave IR.
And if I can bitch about something, where the hell are the floaters? Come on, Noah.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. I think it's because of Ghost 16 that they're trying to readapt or do something with their. Now, with that said, and I know, and I'm showing you Tropical Tidbits floater loop right now from tropicaltidbits.com, and you can see the convection trying to flare on the south side, but every time it pinwheels around, there's more dry air working into the center of this thing again. So we'll see if that mixes out maybe during the night or something. It could re-intensify. We'll have to wait and see about that. But right now it doesn't look particularly healthy with that dry air, and it's got the bat look. And when I say the bat look, let me describe that because I mentioned it on numerous hurricane warning shows. So let me.
The words right out of my mouth.
Yep, let me show you what I mean when I say that because it happens on a regular basis here. Okay. Here is the head of the bat, so to speak, and then it's got this kind of thing going on. That's what I call the bat look. I know that doesn't look like a bat, but
can you stop the image or no?
No, I don't. Let me see if I can.
Might be easier for them to see.
Yeah, let me pause it. All right. Well, yeah, there we go. Okay, so there it is paused, and you know what that looks like? It looks like one of those pads, those patches you put over your eyes when you need to sleep at night. But that's kind of what I'm talking about is the fact that it. Let me draw this a little better because the bat look. I could draw a better bat than this because usually there's like a pulsing of, and it's something like that. Like I can't draw very well, obviously. I mean, that's a train wreck. But
move on.
It's a bat, okay? That's my bat. Okay, the wings and the dry air slot to the south, whatever. That's my bat. It's not a classic bat-looking hurricane right now either, so I'm going to defend my drawing there. But it's just not a classic-looking bat like you see in the northern Gulf of Mexico quite yet.
No, it still has a chance to fight off the bat look. It's not the worst bat appearance I've seen.
Okay. All right. A couple more notes I have here. I wanted to mention with the that's another thing I want to remind me to do this real quick before we leave here shortly. A radar from WeatherTap that's a future radar. It's a model radar that takes the radar out into the future, so I want to show you that. But just real quickly, both Myrtle Beach and Wilmington are going to get absolutely hammered on Friday, okay? Both of these cities don't see major hurricanes very often, about once every 29 years. I think Myrtle Beach, believe it or not, sees more majors. They get once every 26 years, Wilmington, it's about once every 29 years they get a major in there. Hurricanes, on the other hand, it's about every 6 years. They get a hurricane in Wilmington. Myrtle Beach, it's about every 7.5 years. So they're both well versed with tropical systems. In fact, when it comes to all storms, tropical storms, brushes, hits from everything, it's about once every 1.7 years for Wilmington. In fact, Wilmington is in the top 5 in my rankings for all cities. So they're very familiar with this kind of a thing. They're just not very familiar with majors, but they're very familiar with hurricanes hitting the area. And Myrtle Beach is about once every 2 years they get a named storm. They've dealt with and I ran the animation last night on Hurricane Fran from 1996, came up from the south. I think this damage will be very similar to Fran, even if it weakens a little, because Fran ended up being like 105, 115, somewhere in that ballpark around Wilmington and Topsail Beach. So I think this could be about the same when it's all said and done.
Fran was nasty. I remember that.
So let me screen capture this real quick, this weather tap. Let me see. Thought I had it up now. Let me see if it'll pull it up here. Paste and go. Nope, that's not it. All right, let me quickly check my emails. And there's a link on here to that. By the way, I'm getting some nice feedback from people on my predictions for Myrtle Beach and Wilmington.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the people saying that.
Do not let your guard down whatsoever. If you're looking at this thing weakening and thinking, oh, it's not going to be too bad. Oh, no.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very bad. Okay, let's see. Copy link. All right. And we're going to go to, because it wouldn't open.
Make sure.
Okay, here we go. Let me screen capture this. Now, this is based on the North American mesoscale model, and this is a radar that goes out into the future. And let's run this. Okay, this is going out to. Let me go frame by frame. Okay, this is. Wait a minute. Excuse me. 9/12. What's our date today? Today's the 12th, right?
Yes.
No, it's not putting a timestamp on it, so forget that. I'm just going to run the animation, but you can see there's the animation.
Timestamp's up in the corner. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but it's not. It's showing today's date. It's the time that they generated the images. That's not the time, the date in the future that it's going to be hitting.
Oh yeah, just run it. Okay, I see what you're saying.
So there it is. The NAM takes it just north of Wilmington, and that's the radar, future radar, as it comes on shore. So notice the eye wall, the donut-shaped eye wall kind of collapses as it hits the shoreline there. And I don't think I can zoom in on this. No. Nope.
You could.
Oh, yeah, I can. There it is.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, darn it.
It looks like you went too far north. Maybe a couple of days ago, that might have been good.
Yeah. There you go. So that's the future. That's based on the North American mesoscale model, taking it in just north of Wilmington there. And then that has it dipping to the south, believe it or not, just offshore. So that's the NAM one more time. Let's back out of that and go back on screen. All right, so any final thoughts here tonight, Bill?
No, I think I just want to hammer the point. Don't let your guard down, even with this weakening slightly. I don't care if it goes down to a Category 2 with winds, this disaster is already in motion. The story with this is liable to be all about water, the freshwater flooding and the rain flooding. We're talking about 1 to 2 feet in Wilmington and spots inland, depending on where those bands set up. If that materializes, that's going to be a disaster.
Agreed. All right, my final words tonight are, just like Bill said, the water is going to be huge no matter what the intensity this is. The wall of water has been built and it's coming. So you're going to be underwater if you're on the coast. If you're stupid enough to stay on the coast, we're going to see a couple people die or more, because there's going to be people that are going to probably risk their lives and stay in their homes on the coast. And I had to show the surge map. What am I doing? Real quick, let's show the surge map, and then we'll have to can it real quick.
While you're doing that, I'll also give you a word of advice. Make sure you get your sleep tonight and tomorrow night, if you are hanging around in the Wilmington and those coastal areas, because you're not going to get much sleep.
That's
Friday
right.
night and over the weekend, I guarantee.
Yeah, it's really good advice. Yep. Get some sleep. Definitely. You're going to need it. Try to get your mind off the hurricane. Watch some other programming on TV.
Watch a movie. Watch one of
Yep.
the sporting events tomorrow. There'll still be college football on, something like that. Do something normal.
Exactly. Exactly, because if you immerse yourself in this hysterical alarmism that you see like on the Weather Channel, you're going to drive yourself bananas. All right, here is the surge maps. Let's zoom it in. And this is from the National Hurricane Center. Okay, let me back out of that. What did I do here?
I almost wonder if you ought to get that out of the frame and take it full. Maybe tomorrow. No, there you go. No, it's okay.
Okay. So here are the surge. Here's the surge map. This can be found in the links below the tracking map. You click on surge potential, and it's updated by the National Hurricane Center. Those red areas are water of 12 feet or higher. That's possible, and this is just water inundation. This is not rainfall as well as water inundation. So all that red area, the end of those rivers where it's all going to swell up, and then the rain is going to fall in combination with the storm surge, and it's just going to be like epic flooding in here. I can't even. I don't know what else. What other word to use?
Do we have time for a quick example? I went through Matthew here, and this is not Matthew, but it applies.
Right.
What happened is I had 3 or 4 feet of water in my neighborhood, not around my apartment, but I'm up on a little hill, but I go down to the main road and I'm going, okay, there's 3 or 4 feet of water in here. You know what caused that? 15 inches of rain. That's all freshwater flooding. And then the storm surge also getting into the city sewage water drainage system. That's all going to happen here. So you're going to have water in places you're not normally used to seeing it because of that. Yeah. And it could be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 foot deep. And if you better be out of those areas or you're in trouble.
Right. Yep. And even inland, this is not just a coastal situation, but inland for days, there's going to be dumping. It's going to be like a sponge wringing out, and a lot of these towns are going to be underwater. Columbia, South Carolina, inland areas, maybe Raleigh a little bit, but I'm thinking maybe not as bad now. It's probably going to be more rain in South Carolina, actually, than western North Carolina.
Put that map from WPC right there before we get out of here.
Oh, yeah, by the way, yeah, that's, well, I don't know if I can do that, but I want the National Hurricane Center has these links. Let me Oh, I was already on it. Never mind.
You just X out of the screen share too.
The
There you go.
local weather service offices are listed on the National Hurricane Center homepage. So if you, for example, if you click on Wilmington here, it'll take you to all the localized information. Like when you click on these areas, for example, right around Wilmington, click on that map, and then it'll give you the projected weather conditions for the next several days. Let's see, Friday, hurricane conditions expected, chance of rain 100%, 4 inches of rain possible. Friday night, hurricane conditions possible, rain in excess of 4 inches, etc., etc. You can do this for each area on the map that's in the areas that are going to be impacted, and that's from the front page of Hurricane City.
Click on some of the marine forecasts off the coast there and look at the wave heights. It's astounding. Just click on one of the weather forecasts. Did it give it to you? Yeah, let's see.
It's not mentioning wave heights. Let me see.
What?
Oh yeah, here we go.
There it
Building
is.
23 to 38 foot waves tonight. That's in the area offshore of Cape Fear.
That's 20 to 100 nautical miles out.
Yep. And then we have Friday seas 22 to 32 feet, winds 80 to 100 knots. Anybody with a vessel out there is going to be killed.
Anybody with a vessel out there is obviously not in their right mind.
Maximum waves I see are 44 feet.
Jeez.
Amazing.
And even if the winds come down, those waves aren't going to come down that quickly.
All right, and quickly, I just wanted to, give myself, because I didn't really do it last night either, and I wanted to give myself a shout out for my city picks, which I'm going to show you right
Put them
now,
up on
real
the
quickly.
screen. You deserve it.
The yellow areas have already been impacted. We had Tropical Storm Chris affect Sable Island, Nova Scotia. That was my number 1 pick. Wilmington, North Carolina is number 2. Myrtle Beach is 3. Cape Hatteras is number 4. So 2 out of those 3, and potentially 3 out of 3 are going to be impacted. Yeah, I would say it'd probably be at least a brush on the Outer Banks. So I think all 3 of these are going to be knocked off the list. So it'll be all of my top 5 will be impacted this year. But what's amazing when you look at this is Wilmington and Myrtle Beach right next to each other. And somebody said this on Facebook or something the other day that it reminded them of when I predicted all those cities in Mississippi in 2005, and then Katrina came in there and leveled them all.
You clustered it again. It's a cluster.
They're all clustered, yep, and that's because I have a strong belief that that area is going to be impacted. Whenever you see cities that tight together, you better batten down the hatches. If your city is in my city picks in my top 5 and they're clustered like that, you better be prepared because it's probably going to happen. It's happened like 6 or 7 of my years. I've been doing this for 14 years. About half of the years that I picked one of my top 5, they were slammed by a major. And when I'm saying major, I'm talking an ass-kicking hurricane that is retired and it kills people and it's really, really bad. So just take a look at my predictions, Jim's hurricanecity.com/predictions.
Even if this weakens to a 2, you're getting your ass kicked. Period.
Exactly. All right. That's it for tonight. Let me get back on camera here. And I'm Jim Williams along with Bill Phillips. We're going to be back here tomorrow night again, 8 o'clock for about an hour. And we'll know a lot more by then, exactly where it's going to go down, who's going to get it the worst, what the final track is going to be. We'll know tomorrow a lot more, but it's looking a lot like it's going to be Myrtle Beach and Wilmington that are just going to get slammed by this thing, and then it's going to go inland. So we'll see you tomorrow night right here, 8 o'clock p.m. And then on Friday, starting probably late morning, we're going to start our marathon coverage of webcams, chasers, radar, satellite, scanner audio.
And we're both prepared to go all day if necessary.
Yeah, this will be a marathon event going into Saturday. So we're going to be on and off the live feed for the next 48 hours starting on Friday. Tomorrow night right here, 8 o'clock p.m. All right, that's it. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.